Would you be upset if they ever replaced you as Tony Stark and Iron Man?
Starting up again is off the table. I feel I've done all I could with that character.
Robert Downey Jr. built Marvel, but when he saw who they put in the Iron Man suit, everything changed. The original Avengers have quit. Disney is panicking. And what Pedro Pascal responded with will shock you. It's the betrayal that may have just ended the MCU forever. Let's get into the details. They replaced him without warning. It's over. Robert Downey Jr., the man who was Iron Man, was forced to witness the ultimate disrespect. A moment so shocking it triggered a chain reaction that has now led to the entire original Avengers cast walking away from Disney for good. They are refusing to be part-timers in the universe they bled for. And the most shocking part of this story, the moment Robert Downey Jr. finally broke. It wasn't on a film set. It's rumored to have been in a boardroom negotiation. It happened in a private screening room where he saw something so sickening, so utterly soul-crushing, that it changed everything. He saw Pedro Pascal, not as Mr. Fantastic, but in the Iron Man suit. For over a decade, we watched Robert Downey Jr. resurrect his own career and, in the process, build a multi-billion-dollar empire for Marvel and Disney. He was more than just an actor in a role. He was the heart, the soul, and the charismatic engine of the entire MCU. He famously took a gamble on a C-list comic book character and turned him into a global phenomenon. And for years, he was happy to play the part of the confident frontman, even admitting he once saw himself as the center of it all.
Would you be upset if they ever replaced you as Tony Stark and Iron Man, or do you have an exit strategy in any of this?
I believe I do. Let me backtrack and just say that if you'd asked me in 2008, 9, 10 how I felt about it, I would say that I was the Atlas of the Marvel Universe. I was holding it up.
Well, you were.
And he was right. Without him, none of it would have happened. But as the years went on, a sense of humility and partnership grew. He started to see himself not as the solo Atlas, but as a key member of a legendary band.
I really just got to be the front man in a band that was going to be in the Hall of Fame no matter what.
That sense of shared legacy, of family, became the bedrock of the MCU's success. A real-world bond that translated into on-screen chemistry that audiences fell in love with. The cast themselves spoke about this connection constantly, about how their real friendships echoed through their performances.
And what you see, the authenticity of, Iron Man, Captain America, whatever on screen, there is a real friendship with Chris and Robert, so then it starts to just come through whether we like it or not.
This was the magic. This was the lightning in a bottle that Kevin Feige, the Nick Fury of Marvel Studios, had managed to capture. It was a group of people who genuinely cared for each other, who had lived their lives together on this grand adventure.
Kevin, you put us in a position where we lived our lives looking at each other in the eyes and playing these big stakes moments and being in trouble together and saving each other and worrying about each other. So it was kind of like these six souls became this impossible to explain thing. Smallness of our lives has been a constant in this massive endeavor.
That was the promise that even after the snap, even after the blip, even after Tony Stark's heroic sacrifice in Endgame, that smallness, that family would endure. It's why RDJ, even after his perfect gut-wrenching exit, never fully closed the door. He spoke of his potential return with a sense of reverence, stating it would take something special, a truly compelling reason to bring him back.
Starting up again is off the table. I feel I've done all I could with that character. There would have to be a super compelling argument and a series of events that made it obvious.
And for a while, it seemed that compelling argument would never come. RDJ moved on. He took on challenging roles, culminating in a breathtaking, career-redefining performance in Oppenheimer that earned him an Academy Award. He had proven, once and for all, that he was more than Tony Stark. He was one of the greatest actors of his generation. The Oscar win, sources said, gave RDJ immense creative freedom. He could do anything. He didn't need Marvel. But then, the unthinkable happened. Marvel, facing a string of critical and commercial disappointments, came calling. They had found their super compelling argument. Kevin Feige, in a private meeting, didn't just float an idea. He made an offer that seemed too good to be true. He wanted RDJ back. Not as a cheap Iron Man variant, but in a role that would challenge him anew. The iconic villain, Dr. Doom. It was a masterstroke. The man who started the universe would return to threaten it. Reports swirled that the deal was massive, a paycheck rumored to be around $100 million. But for Downey, it was never just about the money. This was his chance to come home, to play in the sandbox he helped build, but with a new set of toys. He described the pull of Marvel Marvel as being too integral a part of my DNA. This is where the fairy tale should have ended. RDJ, the Oscar-winning legend, returning to his roots for one last epic hurrah. He was mentoring the new generation, even inviting the new Reed Richards, Pedro Pascal, to his home for homework days to prepare for their roles in the upcoming Avengers, Doomsday. It all seemed perfect, a passing of the torch, done with respect and collaboration. But behind the scenes, a far more sinister plan was in motion. Disney and Marvel weren't just bringing Downey back for a new role, they were testing the waters for the ultimate replacement. The bombshell moment came during what was supposed to be a celebratory, top-secret preview at Marvel's headquarters. RDJ, along with a few other key figures, was there to see early concept art and pre-visualization for the future of the franchise. It was a showcase of the multiverse saga's grand vision. They showed him Dr. Doom, powerful and terrifying. They showed him the new Fantastic Four, with Pedro Pascal at the helm as Reed Richards. RDJ, ever the professional, was impressed. He praised Pascal's casting, even telling reporters that Pascal's slow rise to stardom reaffirms my faith in our industry. He was all in. He was ready to be the elder statesman, the wise mentor. And then, they showed him the final piece of concept art. A what-if scenario, they called it. A glimpse into a potential future. The screen lit up, and there it was. Not Tony Stark, not some unknown actor. It was Pedro Pascal, his face digitally rendered, inside a brand new, sleek, advanced version of the Iron Man suit. The room went silent. According to an insider who was present, the shift in Downey's demeanor was instantaneous and chilling. His smile vanished. The light in his eyes, the easy charm he was famous for, just went out. It wasn't an angry outburst. It was something far worse. It was a quiet, devastating realization. This wasn't a what if. This was an audition. They were showing him, to his face, that the man he had been mentoring, the man he had welcomed into his home, was being groomed to take over his legacy. Not just lead the Avengers, but to become the new Iron Man. In that single, breathtakingly arrogant moment, Disney had shown their hand. Tony Stark wasn't a memory to be honored. He was a brand to be repackaged, an asset to be exploited. And Robert Downey Jr. was just the guy who used to have the job. He had once joked about his exit strategy and whether he would be upset if they replaced him. Back then, he played it cool.
Would you be upset if they ever replaced you as Tony Stark and Iron Man, or do you have an exit strategy in any of this?
I believe I do.
But he could never have imagined this, a replacement being dangled in front of him like a carrot, while he was still walking their halls, still committed to their future. But what else could Disney risk losing, besides Robert? Or how did they suddenly get here? How Marvel lost its cast, its fans, and its future. Marvel's entire long-term strategy for the multiverse saga had been built on a foundation that just crumbled into dust. The studio's secret weapon, their creative safety net, was gone. The ability to sprinkle in a beloved cameo from Captain America or a last-minute voiceover from Iron Man for a post-credits stinger, gone, evaporated. And along with it, the emotional glue holding the Marvel Cinematic Universe together. Marvel's recent creative and financial struggles were no secret. Box office fatigue, audience apathy, and internal disarray had become common knowledge. Films that were once guaranteed billion-dollar juggernauts were now limping past $400 million, or worse, flopping entirely. Once prized Disney Plus spin-offs had become glorified trailers for movies no one was excited for. And now, with Robert Downey Jr. and the rest of the core cast walking away from the franchise in coordinated silence, the studio's ultimate trump card, bringing the originals back to reinvigorate a weary audience, was no longer an option. That card had been torn up and thrown in their faces. The most immediate and devastating impact was on the morale of the new cast, particularly the Fantastic Four. Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Eben Moss-Bachrach were supposed to be the next great Marvel family, the new blood, the new core, the inheritors of the legacy. They had just wrapped an incredibly difficult and complex shoot. They were on the precipice of becoming global superstars. The press tours had begun. The vibe was hopeful, even excited. They spoke in interviews about the solace they found in each other, about being the new kids on the block, sticking together in a pressure cooker of expectations. Joseph Quinn described the experience of filming the Fantastic Four as personal and special because they were all new to it, a contained, close-knit family unit. But stepping onto a larger Marvel set, that was another story.
Like walking into this very big movie of Avengers Doomsday, I was just like grabbing on tight to my little Fantastic Four family because it can be quite overwhelming. It's a huge set with incredible actors who've been doing it for a long time. And it's nice to have, my homies with me.
Now, those incredible actors he looked up to, the legends, the pioneers, had silently disavowed the entire enterprise. They weren't just retiring from their roles, they were rejecting the direction Marvel was heading altogether. The new cast was left adrift, captains of a shiny new ship that the original fleet refused to acknowledge. And that situation put Pedro Pascal in a particularly agonizing position. He was not just a member of the new team, he was its leader, Reed Richards. And thanks to the studio's hubris, he was now also the man whose face had been plastered onto the Iron Man suit, the symbol of the ultimate betrayal. Not because he asked for it, not because he lobbied for it, but because Disney and Marvel Studios saw him as pliable, as a bankable name they could mold into whatever they wanted. An empty suit to wear another man's crown, the warmth and mentorship he had received from Robert Downey Jr., now it felt like a cruel joke. Those homework days at Downey's home, once a sign of a blossoming friendship, were now tainted with irony. Pascal, a sensitive and introspective actor who had openly discussed his career insecurities and his imposter syndrome, now found himself at the center of a storm he never asked for, caught between a rock and a crumbling empire. On one side, a studio that saw him as a utility. On the other, the disappointed silence of the very legends he admired. Vanessa Kirby, his co-star, once described how his casting as Reed Richards had felt like fate.
The film pushed a bit because of the strikes and everything was in flux, and then suddenly he was available, and it was just like the clearest thing ever to me. And it's actually one of my best guy friends, Tim, went, oh, I think it's Pedro. I think it's Pedro Pascal. And he got a picture of him, it's fantastic. And he got a picture of you up, and we both went and went, oh my God. And I rang Matt Shackman. So do you know the story?
Yes, you told me.
I told you. And I rang Matt Shackman. I went, Matt, I've had this thought today. I feel like I know who it is. And he goes, I had one too. I went, who's it? He went, it's Pedro. And we both said it at the same time.
But fate, it seemed, had a dark sense of humor. Pascal thought he was walking into the role of a lifetime. Instead, he was walking into the MCU's Civil War. And the fallout wasn't confined to the actors or their feelings. The entire architecture of Marvel's future storytelling was now in freefall. Scripts had to be torn up, plans scrapped. Writers' rooms scrambled to rewrite major plot lines involving the original Avengers returning as variants in Secret Wars or Avengers Eternity War. Poignant reunions that had been in development for years, gone. Emotional callbacks, fan-pleasing cameos, legacy moments, erased, because the actors refused to participate. The emotional core of the multiverse saga, heroes from different eras coming together, had been gutted. What remained was a hollow, mechanical exercise in brand maintenance. The universe that had once felt so full of soul now felt like a theme park on autopilot, and Robert Downey Jr. himself had, years earlier, foreshadowed this exact failure in a moment of reflection. He explained how the character of Tony Stark had slowly morphed to reflect more of who he was in real life.
I find like there was a much clearer kind of, this is who the character was in the first time I played it. And then out of just like, oh, I want to do something different, slowly just became me screwing around and kind of having fun. And I don't know, I'm not saying I'm completely the character, but there's more of me in the character now than ever.
That fusion, actor and character becoming one, was the secret sauce. That fusion was now lost. What Marvel had left were hollow suits, parading across green screens, pretending to matter. This emptiness, is the state of Marvel today. The grand interconnected tapestry that Kevin Feige had so brilliantly woven over 22 films, it's unraveling, one thread at a time. Chris Hemsworth once marveled, no pun intended, at Feige's genius.
I mean, I'm always amazed with the ability that Kevin has had to house this giant tapestry of all these woven plot lines. I just don't think it's ever going to happen again. I don't think anyone has the ability to kind of launch them all kind of explode at once. It's just kind of the planning and the care and the subtlety to it is just...
But the care and subtlety are gone, replaced by a cynical strategy of duplication, replacement, recycling legacy rather than creating it. And with every studio move, every fake-out teaser, every AI-enhanced cameo, every half-baked multiverse loop, they drive the stake deeper into the heart of what the MCU used to be. Yes, Downey will fulfill his contract. He will appear as Dr. Doom in Avengers Doomsday. He is, after all, a professional, and you better believe that his performance will be electrifying. He doesn't know how to phone it in, but the joy is gone. The camaraderie camaraderie, the shared purpose. He is no longer the frontman of a Hall of Fame band. He is a hired gun, doing a job for a company that betrayed him. The future now rests on the shoulders of Pedro Pascal and the new generation, and they're walking into an impossible situation. They are talented, they are passionate, but they're climbing uphill through a storm of legacy, controversy, and betrayal. They're expected to rebuild the franchise while knowing deep down that the founding fathers want no part of it. They are living in the house that Tony Stark built, but the lights are off, the soul is gone, and the original family, they're not coming back. It is a universe at war with itself, a house divided, a franchise on life support running on inertia and memory. And as the old saying goes, a house divided against itself cannot stand. The grand experiment that began with a man in a cave building a suit of armor is ending, not with a bang. Iron Man was never a suit. The fallout from the silent protest of the original 6 Avengers didn't just disrupt production schedules or force emergency script rewrites. It tore through the walls of the most powerful studio in Hollywood like a seismic rupture, quiet on the surface, but violent at its core. The logistics were a nightmare, yes. Cameos scrapped, timelines redrawn, budgets blown to pieces. But what truly broke wasn't Marvel's pipeline. It was its soul. Because the Marvel Cinematic Universe was never just about superheroes flying across the sky. It was trust. It was continuity. It was emotional investment across time. Over a decade, the MCU became a global ritual, an ongoing story that transcended cinema and became a cultural heartbeat. Fans lined up for midnight releases not just to see explosions or flashy suits, but because they believed. They believed in the bond between character and performer. And that bond was forged by 6 people: Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Chris Hemsworth, Jeremy Renner, and Mark Ruffalo. Their names were more than credits. They were the guarantors of a promise that what you were watching mattered. Now, that promise has been broken, and the audience knows it. Disney's decision to swap faces like interchangeable parts, symbolized most infamously by the Pedro Pascal Iron Man render, didn't just miscalculate the optics. It betrayed a fundamental misunderstanding of their own success. They thought the audience loved Iron Man, but they didn't just love Iron Man, they loved Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. They mistook the suit for the man. They confused the brand for the soul. And that mistake might be what finally kills the Marvel empire. Robert Downey Jr. always understood the nuance of the character. He knew that Tony Stark wasn't a symbol of unshakable strength. He was a man in pain, a brilliant, broken mind wrapped in a shell of sarcasm and tech. RDJ wasn't just playing confidence, he was playing the facade of confidence.
Everyone goes like, oh man, Tony Stark is so confident, and you must be that confident. And I'm like, I'm portraying someone who's a very kind of broken guy, but his facade is that he's confident. So to say that I'm just the facade is to kind of shortchange how human we all are.
It was that depth, that lived-in complexity, that made the performance iconic. It wasn't just acting, it was alchemy. RDJ became Tony Stark the way only legends do. He didn't perform from the outside in. He inhabited the role from the inside out.
I was just thinking, this is me, and I am in this situation.
That's what you do.
Absolutely.
I am a tycoon. I'm brilliant.
Yeah.
And how would I behave if I was that guy?
Yeah. That kind of magic can't be recast. It can't be replicated with better lighting or a shinier suit. But Disney tried anyway. They tried to bottle lightning twice, and they handed the bottle to Pedro Pascal. Now, the burden of this corporate delusion falls on the new generation. The Fantastic Four cast isn't just launching a film, they're performing a salvage operation. They're being asked to win back a jaded, betrayed fan base while standing in the ashes of a universe that was once beloved. And all the while, the original cast, once gods among fans, are nowhere to be found. Not in post-credits teases, not in multiverse mashups, not in advisory roles. Gone. Every press junket, every red carpet appearance, every panel interview, they're haunted by ghosts. You can see the strain in their interviews, the nervous energy, the coded language. They lean on each other like lifeboat passengers after a shipwreck.
Well, they were quite contrasting experiences. I think that we had the solace of the other 3 actors on Fantastic Four, and it felt very contained, and the fact that we were all new to it, that made for it to feel, it just felt like a very personal and special experience. Not to say that Avengers isn't a special experience, but it's just, you're dealing with seasoned professionals that have been doing this for ages. So it's very it's encouraging and reassuring to kind of know these characters.
That encouragement, gone. The seasoned professionals they once looked up to, they packed their bags and left the studio behind. So what's next for Marvel? They'll keep making films. Of course they will. The machine can't stop. Avengers, Doomsday is coming. Downey Jr. will appear as Dr. Doom. It'll generate headlines. It'll make money. But money doesn't equal magic, and the magic is dead. The connective tissue that once held this cinematic universe together has decayed. The MCU has become a hollow cathedral, grand in design, empty in spirit. It's a franchise made up of contracts and copyrights, not chemistry and characters. What once felt like a legacy now feels like a loop, a multiverse of what-ifs, recastings, and workarounds. Less narrative, more loophole. The studio will double down on the multiverse gimmick, not to explore richer storytelling, but to explain away inconsistencies, to make room for replacements, to justify desperation. It will no longer be a universe of heroes. It will be a universe of excuses, and that's the true tragedy. Not that Marvel is failing, but that it doesn't even understand why. There are no winners in this story. The original cast is left with a bitter taste in their mouths. Their decade-long labor of love, undone in a boardroom. Their legacy, cheapened by one soulless pitch deck after another. The new cast is set up to fail, handed the wheel of a ship that's already sinking, expected to steer it to glory while the original crew stands on shore, shaking their heads. And the fans? The loyal millions who invested years, emotions, and memories into this world. They're left with a cinematic ghost town, a theme park where the rides are still open, but the original attractions have all been closed for good. Robert Downey Jr. once spoke about a dinner with the Marvel team that felt like a final goodbye, like closure, like a circle being completed.
And I got to go have dinner with a bunch of the Marvel folks last night and kind of have just a little bit of extra closure. Kind of hadn't really had a chance just to do nothing, just hang out and, have some crudité and kind of talk shit. So it was really interesting. Last night was this kind of real, felt like closing the circle on things a bit.
But what Downey didn't know that night was that Disney wasn't closing the circle. They were preparing to reopen it, not to honor the story, but to exploit it. Not to celebrate the legacy, but to leverage it. They weren't looking to tell new stories. They were looking to repackage old ones. In the end, Downey himself provided the metaphor for Marvel's fall. He once compared studios to boxers who don't know when to walk away, who keep chasing past glory until they're a shadow of who they once were.
Boxers are a perfect example. They always last too long. There's only been a small handful, like Andre Ward recently, Marvelous Marvin Hagler in his prime. They just go, that's it, I'm done. And they actually are done. Almost every one of them comes back, and almost every one of them chases that dragon.
The original Avengers, they knew when to walk away. Marvel Studios, they're the aging fighter who can't hang up the gloves, still stepping into the ring, still chasing that dragon, still trying to land punches in an empty arena while the audience files out. It is the most tragic kind of ending, not death by villain or box office bomb, but death by denial. The universe Robert Downey Jr. built with his own hands wasn't destroyed by Thanos. It wasn't undone by Kang or Dr. Doom. It was dismantled by the very people who were supposed to protect it. And that is why it's truly over for Marvel. If you enjoyed watching this video, check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
A full-scale rebellion is brewing behind the scenes at Marvel as stars declare war on Disney CEO Bob Iger. Jeremy Renner's explosive rejection of Disney's insult offer is just the beginning.
I'm like, wow, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money.
Meanwhile, other MCU stars are joining the revolution, publicly condemning Iger's leadership.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic.
The shocking secret meetings, career-ending threats, and the 3 A-list stars ready to walk away forever. This is the Marvel Civil War they don't want you to know about. The shocking revelation. Jeremy Renner's insulting offer. In early May 2025, during an interview with the High Performance app that was shared on TikTok, Renner made the jaw-dropping claim that Disney had offered him only half of his previous salary for a potential second season of the Disney Plus series Hawkeye. This revelation, documented across multiple entertainment news outlets, including Hindustan Times, IndieWire, and People, came as a particular shock considering Renner's long-standing position as one of the original Avengers and his significant contribution to the Marvel Cinematic Universe over more than a decade. What makes this situation even more remarkable is the timing and context surrounding Disney's offer. As many of you will recall, Jeremy Renner suffered a near-fatal snowplow accident on New Year's Day 2023, resulting in over 35 broken bones and multiple titanium replacements. The actor endured a grueling rehabilitation journey, which he later detailed in his memoir, My Next Breath, released on April 29, 2024. It was against this backdrop of recovery and resilience that Renner claims Disney approached him with the reduced salary offer. In his own words during the High Performance interview, Renner expressed his disbelief at the proposal.
I'm like, I'm sorry. Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over? Maybe that's why you want to pay me half?
The actor's pointed reference to his accident adds a particularly poignant dimension to this dispute, suggesting he felt the offer might have been connected to perceptions about his physical capabilities post-recovery. Adding insult to injury, according to Renner, this halved salary was proposed despite expectations for twice the amount of work and an 8-month time commitment for the second season. The stark contrast between increased workload and decreased compensation left the actor feeling that he had no choice but to decline the offer. It's worth noting that Renner was careful to distinguish between Disney's financial department and Marvel Studios in his criticism. This is not Marvel, mind you. This is like just Disney, not even really Disney. It's just the penny pinchers, the accountants, he clarified. This distinction suggests Renner's issue is specifically with the business side of operations, rather than the creative team with whom he's collaborated for years. The actor's response to the offer was unequivocal. He rejected it outright, telling Disney's financial team to go fly a kite, as he colorfully phrased it. Despite this strong stance, Renner emphasized that his love for the Hawkeye character remains unchanged. I still love the character. I'd still love to do it, but I had to defend myself. What makes this situation particularly interesting is that it's not an isolated incident. Industry observers have noted similar patterns with other actors. John Malkovich, who is set to appear in the Fantastic Four First Steps 2025, revealed he had previously turned down Marvel roles for years due to what he perceived as insufficient pay for the demanding nature of superhero productions. If you're going to hang from a crane in front of a green screen for 6 months, pay me, Malkovich stated, highlighting the physical and time demands these roles often entail. Additionally, reports have suggested that other actors like Hugo Weaving, who played Red Skull, and Carrie Coon have also walked away from Marvel roles over what they considered lowball offers, though specific details of these negotiations remain less public. To fully appreciate the context of Renner's situation, it's important to consider the typical compensation structure for MCU stars. Top earners like Robert Downey Jr. reportedly received around $75 million for Avengers Endgame, while Chris Hemsworth and Scarlett Johansson have commanded approximately $20 million per film in recent years. These figures have been widely reported in industry publications, creating a stark contrast with Renner's reported offer. For his part, Renner's MCU earnings have reportedly ranged from $3 million to $15 million for previous films, making the alleged pay cut for Hawkeye Season 2 all the more dramatic. While exact figures for his Season 1 compensation haven't been publicly disclosed, industry estimates suggest the proposed reduction would represent a significant financial step backward for the actor. This controversy has certainly caught the attention of fans, many of whom have expressed strong support for Renner on social media platforms. On X, formerly Twitter, posts expressing disappointment with Marvel's decision have gained significant traction. One notable comment urged, "Pay that man his money," while another user criticized Marvel directly, "Hey, at Marvel Studios, that's messed up, no? Maybe next time you cannot insult one of your original and longest-lasting cast members in a time when you're not exactly lighting the world on fire." Particularly noteworthy is how fans have connected Renner's situation to his personal challenges following the accident. The sentiment that Disney should be more considerate given his recovery journey has resonated strongly within the fan community, with some expressing that the offer feels particularly callous in light of what the actor has endured. Some fans have even speculated about potential future negotiations, with one commenting, "After the reveal and Thunderbolts, and Haley using her new leverage after Hash Sinners, he'll get paid." This references Haley Steinfeld's rising star power following her success in projects outside the MCU, suggesting her increased leverage might indirectly benefit Renner in future discussions. Disney, for their part, has remained relatively quiet about the specific details of the negotiation. An unnamed Disney insider cited by IndieWire disputed Renner's claims, but notably failed to provide specific details to counter his statements. This lack of transparency has only fueled further speculation about the nature of the offer and Disney's approach to talent compensation more broadly. The situation raises important questions about how actors are valued in an era of expanding streaming content and changing business models. For a character like Hawkeye, who has been part of the MCU since nearly the beginning, fans might reasonably expect compensation to reflect that long-standing contribution to the franchise's success. Adding another layer to this already complex situation is Renner's potential involvement in future MCU projects beyond Hawkeye. Despite the salary dispute, there have been indications that Renner might return as Hawkeye in Avengers Doomsday, scheduled for release on May 1st, 2026. In an August 2024 interview, Renner hinted at his involvement, stating he is really excited and thinks he'll probably be doing it. This suggests that while the Hawkeye series negotiations have reached an impasse, doors remain open for Renner's return in other capacities. Production on Avengers Doomsday reportedly began in April 2025, with a cast including Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm Invisible Woman, and Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, Captain America, among others. So what does the future hold for Hawkeye in the MCU if Jeremy Renner were to permanently step away? The most likely scenario would see Kate Bishop, played by Haley Steinfeld, continuing the Hawkeye legacy. The Hawkeye series already established established her as Clint Barton's protege, creating a natural transition path. Marvel could focus on developing new storylines for Kate, possibly incorporating her into projects like Young Avengers, which has been rumored to be in development. Such a transition would align with Marvel's broader strategy of introducing younger heroes and passing mantles to new characters, as seen with Anthony Mackie taking over as Captain America from Chris Evans. However, Renner's departure would unquestionably represent a significant loss for the franchise, given his long tenure and the fan attachment to his portrayal. As we continue to monitor this developing story, it's clear that the relationship between major studios and their talent remains a delicate balance of creative partnership and business negotiation. A pattern emerges: Marvel's history of financial disputes with stars. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has generated unprecedented box office success over its nearly two-decade existence, has not been immune to behind-the-scenes financial conflicts. In fact, a careful examination of the franchise's history reveals that Jeremy Renner's situation, while certainly dramatic, follows a well-established pattern of salary disputes that have periodically threatened to disrupt the carefully constructed MCU narrative. Perhaps the most famous or infamous early example of such a dispute involved Terrence Howard, who portrayed James Rhodes, later War Machine, in the original Iron Man 2008. What many casual fans may not realize is that Howard was initially paid more than Robert Downey Jr. for the first film, a reflection of Howard's star power at the time, and the perceived risk associated with casting Downey, who was then in the process of rebuilding his career. However, following the unexpected mega success of Iron Man, Howard's compensation was significantly reduced for future projects, reportedly due to budget reallocations that favored increasing Downey's salary. This dramatic pay cut ultimately led to Howard's departure from the franchise, with Don Cheadle stepping in to take over the role of James Rhodes' War Machine for Iron Man 2 and all subsequent appearances. Howard has been vocal about his frustration with this situation over the years, making it clear that financial considerations played a major role in his exit from what would become one of cinema's most successful franchises. This early instance set a precedent that we would see repeated in various forms throughout the MCU's evolution. Another high-profile dispute that captivated industry attention involved Scarlett Johansson, who had been portraying Natasha Romanoff Black Widow since Iron Man 2. In July 2021, Johansson took the extraordinary step of filing a lawsuit against Disney, alleging breach of contract related to the release strategy for her solo film Black Widow. At the heart of Johansson's claim was the decision to release Black Widow simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus Premier Access during the COVID-19 pandemic. The actress alleged this dual release strategy reduced box office revenue, which directly impacted her back-end compensation package that was tied to theatrical performance. Reports suggested Johansson sought approximately $80 million in damages on top of her $20 million base salary for the film. The dispute was ultimately settled in October 2021, with the terms undisclosed but estimated by industry insiders to exceed $40 million. While the specific circumstances of Johansson's case differ from Renner's current situation, both illustrate the ongoing tension between talent compensation and evolving business models in the entertainment industry, particularly as streaming has disrupted traditional revenue streams. Perhaps the most directly comparable precedent to the current Renner situation occurred following the monumental success of The Avengers 2012, which grossed over $1.5 billion worldwide and cemented the MCU as a box office juggernaut. Reports from 2013 indicated that several key Avengers actors, including Chris Hemsworth, Thor, and Chris Evans, Captain America, found themselves in contentious negotiations with Marvel over compensation for future appearances. These actors had signed what were later characterized as ungenerous contracts early in the MCU's development, before its financial success was assured. As the franchise grew exponentially in value, negotiations became increasingly tense. Marvel reportedly offered to triple Chris Hemsworth's contract, though they were not contractually obligated to do so in recognition of his growing importance to the franchise. Robert Downey Jr., who had shrewdly negotiated a percentage of profits rather than just a flat fee for his later appearances, leveraged his position as the MCU's center of gravity to secure increasingly substantial deals, reportedly earning around $75 million for Avengers Endgame, a far cry from the $500,000 he reportedly received for the first Iron Man film. These historical disputes highlight a recurring pattern in Marvel's approach to talent compensation. Initial contracts tend to favor the studio, with renegotiations becoming necessary as the franchise's success grows and actors gain leverage. The frequency of these disputes suggests a systematic approach to talent talent management that prioritizes controlling costs even as the overall franchise generates extraordinary revenues. But financial tensions within the MCU extend beyond just the major stars. Recent controversies have involved actors who, while not headlining their own films, have played crucial supporting roles in the franchise. For instance, reports emerged in 2025 that Carrie Coon had declined to return to the MCU over a salary dispute, though specific details remained private. Similarly, Hugo Weaving, who memorably portrayed the Red Skull in Captain America: The First Avenger, did not return for subsequent appearances, with financial considerations reportedly playing a role in that decision. The situation becomes even more complex when examining how Marvel's strategy has evolved in more recent phases of the MCU. Industry reports suggest that for Phase 4 and beyond, Marvel aimed to decrease tentpole actor salaries, part of a broader strategy emphasizing character brands rather than star power. This approach reportedly resulted in lower salaries for actors like Salma Hayek, Angelina Jolie, and Richard Madden compared to what earlier MCU stars had commanded at similar points in their tenure. This strategic shift appears to reflect Disney's growing confidence in the Marvel brand itself, rather than the individual actors portraying the characters. While this might make financial sense from a corporate perspective, it risks alienating the very talents who bring these beloved characters to life, as we've seen with Renner's public rebuke of what he perceived as an inadequate offer. The disparity in compensation among MCU actors has also drawn increasing attention from fans and industry observers. For example, while Robert Downey Jr. earned approximately $75 million for Avengers Endgame, Chris Evans reportedly made around $20 million, and Chadwick Boseman earned approximately $2 million for Black Panther, a film that grossed over $1.3 billion worldwide. These significant gaps raise questions about equity and compensation, particularly when considering factors such as screen time, character importance, and contribution to the franchise's overall success. It's worth noting that some MCU actors have publicly acknowledged the complex nature of these negotiations without expressing outright dissatisfaction. Benedict Cumberbatch, who portrays Doctor Strange, has spoken about the business aspects of joining such a massive franchise while maintaining that he feels fairly compensated. Similarly, Paul Bettany, Vision, has discussed the evolution of his contract from a voice role as Jarvis to a full character with increased compensation, illustrating the potential for positive growth within the system. However, as evidenced by Jeremy Renner's recent statements, not all actors feel that their compensation has evolved appropriately with their contribution to the franchise. His rejection of what he described as an insult offer for Hawkeye Season 2 suggests that despite Disney's immense resources, there remains a tension between maximizing profitability and ensuring talent feels valued appropriately. This tension becomes particularly pronounced when considering the overall financial success of the MCU. As of 2025, the franchise has generated over $30 billion in global box office revenue, not including merchandise sales, theme park attractions, and the substantial value added to Disney's streaming platform. Against this backdrop of extraordinary financial success, offers that actors perceive as inadequate can appear particularly egregious. But financial disputes aren't the only area where Disney and its Marvel stars have found themselves at odds. In recent years, several MCU actors have publicly expressed disagreement with Disney CEO Bob Iger on various issues, from labor disputes to creative decisions. These conflicts add another dimension to the complex relationship between the studio and its talent roster. One notable example is Tatiana Maslany, who portrayed She-Hulk in the Disney Plus series of the same name. During the 2023 writers and actors strikes, Maslany criticized Iger as being completely out of touch with the workers who create Disney's content. She particularly highlighted the wealth disparity, pointing out that Disney's prosperity was not adequately shared with crew, cast, and writers. Her comments were part of a broader industry backlash against Iger's statements during the labor disputes, which many perceived as dismissive of striking workers' concerns. Similarly, Sean Gunn, who plays Kraglin and serves as the on-set reference for Rocket in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, publicly criticized Iger's remarks during the strikes. Speaking from the picket lines, Gunn directly addressed the massive pay disparity within Disney, stating, "I think when Bob Iger talks about what a shame it is, he needs to remember that in the 1980s, CEOs like him made 30 times more than what the lowest worker was making. Now Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is, and I think that's a Gee, shame, Bob. Even Iman Vellani, star of The Marvels, has indirectly expressed disagreement with Iger. When asked about her film's disappointing box office performance, Vellani shifted responsibility to the CEO, stating simply, "That's for Bob Iger," and emphasizing that the results had nothing to do with me. While less confrontational than the comments from Maslany or Gunn, Vellani's statement nonetheless reflected a willingness to publicly distance herself from corporate disappointments and place accountability at the executive level. These examples demonstrate that financial disputes like Renner's exist within a broader context of tensions between Disney leadership and Marvel talent. The relationship between the studio and its stars appears increasingly strained across multiple dimensions, from compensation to broader industry issues like labor rights and creative direction. Perhaps most tellingly, even Bob Iger himself has acknowledged shortcomings in Marvel's recent trajectory. The bigger picture: Disney CEO Bob Iger and the future of the MCU. Bob Iger, who returned as Disney's CEO in November 2022 after previously serving from 2005 to 2020, has been a transformative figure in the company's history. Under his initial tenure, Disney acquired Pixar 2006, Marvel Entertainment 2009, Lucasfilm 2012, and 21st Century Fox 2019, dramatically expanding the company's intellectual property portfolio and establishing its dominant position in the entertainment industry. Since his return in late 2022, Iger has focused on reorganizing Disney into three branches: Disney Entertainment, Parks, Experiences, and Products, and ESPN. His leadership has been particularly focused on transforming Disney's streaming business and restoring creativity at the company's core goals that directly impact Marvel Studios' operations and output. However, Iger's leadership style and public comments have occasionally put him at odds with talent, particularly during periods of industry unrest. A prime example of this tension emerged during the 2023 Writers Guild of America, WGA, and Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, SAG-AFTRA, strikes, when Iger made comments that many industry professionals, including Marvel stars, found dismissive of legitimate concerns. In a particularly notable interview, Iger described the strikes as very disturbing and characterized the expectations of writers and actors as just not realistic. Let's examine his exact words.
Speaking of content, we're in the midst of a writer's strike, and very likely it would seem to have a actor's strike. How is that going to impact things, and what are your expectations there?
Well, I think it's very disturbing to me. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing and the recovery from COVID, which is ongoing. It's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption.
And when directly asked if the writers and actors were not being realistic, Iger responded affirmatively.
So they're not being realistic?
No, they're not.
Why not?
I can't answer that question. I respect their right and their desire to get as much as they possibly can in compensation for their people. I completely respect that. I've been around long enough to understand that dynamic and to appreciate it. But you also have to be realistic about the business environment and what this business can deliver.
These comments sparked immediate backlash from many in the entertainment industry, including several Marvel stars. As mentioned earlier, Tatiana Maslany, who portrays She-Hulk, criticized Iger as completely out of touch with the workers who create Disney's content, while Sean Gunn highlighted the 400-to-1 pay disparity between Iger and Disney's lowest-paid workers. The strikes eventually concluded with new agreements that addressed many of the union's concerns, including protections against AI usage and improved streaming residuals. However, Iger's comments during this period created lasting tension between Disney leadership and the creative community, including many Marvel actors who participated in the strikes. This backdrop of labor disputes provides important context for understanding Jeremy Renner's salary negotiation. While Renner's situation predates the 2023 strikes, it reflects similar concerns about fair compensation in an evolving entertainment, a landscape. Renner specifically pointed to Disney's penny pinchers rather than Marvel Studios as the source of his frustration, suggesting that financial decisions at the corporate level are creating friction with talent. Beyond labor disputes, Iger has also made comments about Marvel's content strategy that have raised eyebrows among fans and industry observers. In December 2023, he suggested that the substance of MCU stories was partly to blame for box office struggles, particularly emphasizing what he perceived as too much focus on messages rather than entertainment. These comments drew criticism from creative figures like Peter Ramsey, co-director of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, who defended the Marvels against Iger's implications. Fan discussions on platforms like Reddit also pushed back against Iger's framing, with many arguing that quality storytelling rather than ideological messaging was the primary concern for audiences. More recently, in February 2024, Iger outlined a plan to focus on larger MCU franchises as a strategy to save the superhero superhero universe, indicating a potential shift toward more established characters and properties. This direction might have implications for newer characters and more experimental projects, potentially affecting the MCU's diversity of storytelling. Against this backdrop of strategic shifts and public statements, Disney's offer to Jeremy Renner takes on additional significance. Offering half the previous salary to an original Avenger could be interpreted as part of a broader strategy to reduce talent costs, particularly for Disney Plus productions. If true, this would align with reports that Marvel has been aiming to decrease tentpole actor salaries in Phase 4 and beyond. But while cost control might make sense from a pure business perspective, it risks alienating the very talent that has made the MCU successful. Fan reactions to Renner's revelation have been overwhelmingly supportive of the actor, with many expressing disappointment in Disney's approach. Comments on social media posts reporting the dispute show strong sentiment in Renner's favor, with users urging Disney to pay that man his money and criticizing the studio for what they perceive as disrespect toward an original Avenger. The timing of the offer is particularly notable given Renner's recovery from his near-fatal accident. Many fans have pointed out that offering a reduced salary to an actor who has endured significant physical trauma seems especially tone-deaf. As one ex-user commented, disappointing that Disney won't pay an OG Avenger to return, especially after what he's gone through to get back to acting. This brings us to the crucial question: what could these disputes mean for the future of the MCU? Several potential impacts are worth considering. First, there's the immediate question of Hawkeye's future in the franchise. If Jeremy Renner permanently steps away due to compensation disagreements, the most likely scenario would see Kate Bishop, Haley Steinfeld, continuing the Hawkeye legacy. The Disney Plus series already established her as Clint Barton's protege, creating a natural transition. Marvel could focus on developing new storylines for Kate, possibly incorporating her into projects like Young Avengers, which has been rumored to be in development. Such a transition would align with Marvel's broader strategy of introducing younger heroes and passing mantles to new characters, as seen with Anthony Mackie taking over as Captain America from Chris Evans. However, Renner's departure would unquestionably represent a significant loss for the franchise, given his long tenure and the fan attachment to his portrayal. If Renner were to leave, Marvel would miss his experience and depth as an actor who has portrayed Hawkeye for over a decade. His depiction of Clint Barton as a relatable, grounded hero with a family life has added valuable contrast to the more fantastical elements of the MCU. Additionally, his established chemistry with other Avengers actors has contributed significantly to the ensemble dynamic that has been central to the franchise's success. However, there are indications that despite the Hawkeye series dispute, Renner may still be involved in other MCU projects. As mentioned earlier, he has hinted at appearing in Avengers Doomsday, scheduled for release on May 1st, 2026. This suggests that while television negotiations have reached an impasse, his character might continue to appear in theatrical releases. Beyond the specific issue of Hawkeye's future, these disputes highlight broader challenges facing the MCU as it navigates its second decade. The franchise is currently in a period of transition, with many original stars having departed or taking on reduced roles. This creates a delicate balance between honoring legacy characters and establishing new ones, a balance that could be disrupted by contentious salary negotiations with veteran actors. For more content like this, click on the videos showing on your screen now.